Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Listen Up Girl podcast, your go-to source for everything happening in the LGBTQ plus world and beyond. I'm your host, Zach Randles-Friedman. In today's episode, it's a mix. We've got stories that will make you feel hopeful, stories that will make you feel frustrated, and stories that will make you stop and really think. From country music legend Ty Herndon finally living his truth to major political battles impacting trans lives across the country, to conversations about relationships, identity, and even representation in gaming. Let's get into our first story where Ty Herndon, full circle moment. Let's start with something that honestly feels like a deep exhale. Country star Ty Herndon is 63 years old, and for the first time in his life, he says he finally feels normal. After decades of hiding who he was, Ty is now married to his husband, Alex Schwartz, and the two are even talking about having a child next year. And the way he talks about it, it's simple but powerful. He said, I've got a house payment, a husband, a dog, and maybe a baby next year. We're pretty normal. The word normal hits differently when you spent your entire life feeling like you couldn't be. Herndon came out publicly in 2014 after years of struggling with addiction, mental health, and his identity. And in his new memoir, What Matters Most, he opens up about how dark things got, including multiple suicide attempts. But what stands out now is the joy. His nephew summed it up in a way that feels almost poetic. Oh, Uncle Ty's just a plain old gay. And Ty said he waited his whole life to hear that. That's what survival looks like. Not just making it, but getting to a place where you feel like it's ordinary. And for so many LGBTQ plus people, that actually is the dream. Next, we go to Joel Kim Booster on non-monogamy and body image. So let's shift into a conversation that have a lot of people talking, but rarely say this out loud. Comedian and Fire Island writer Joel Kim Booster is opening up about being in a non-monogamous marriage and what that actually means. And here's the key thing that he says is very clear. This is not polyamory. He describes the sex outside of his marriage as recreational. And that distinction, it changes everything because when you remove emotional connection, what's left is just physical attraction. And Booster has been really honest about how that affects him, especially in gay culture where parents can feel like everything. He talks about how hookups can become less about connection and more about how you look. And that can be intense, even damaging. But at the same time, he contrasts that with his marriage, where he says his husband loves him for so much more than just his body. And that's grounding. And that's what makes the whole thing work. It's really a nuanced conversation about modern relationships, identity, and how we value ourselves in a culture that can sometimes be very surface level. I'll just give my little comment here. If you care that much about being criticized for your body, for your hookups, maybe just be with your husband. Just my suggestion, but it's your life. And if you're not hurting anybody, then do whatever you want. This next story is so serious. It's Idaho's extreme anti-trans law. Idaho has introduced one of the most extreme anti-trans bathroom laws we've seen. Under this law, repeated violations could lead to escalating penalties, including prison time, and potentially, believe it or not, life in prison after multiple offenses. So let that sink in. Using a bathroom could eventually lead to life imprisonment. This is part of a broader trend we're seeing across the United States, where legislation targeting transgender people is becoming more aggressive and more punishable. And it raises a bigger question. Where is the line between policy and punishment? When laws start criminalizing identity, not behavior, and that's what gets dangerous. So if you violate the new anti-trans bathroom law in Idaho twice, you could get up to 5 years in prison. If you violate it 4 times, you could be in prison for the rest of your life. Life in prison. So just to kind of sum this up, this is you using the bathroom for the identity that you are identifying as, and they want to put you in jail for this. Where do you use the bathroom? If you are a trans woman, wouldn't you use the woman's bathroom? Because you're a woman now. Why would you go into a men's bathroom? Because you're no longer a man. Why do they? I just don't get these laws. Like, let people be who they are. Oh, it's so frustrating. I just don't know why they go after trans people so much. Next, trans athletes banned from snooker. In international use, the World Professional Billiards and Snooker Association has announced that trans athletes are now banned from competing in women's snooker worldwide. The decision follows a UK Supreme Court ruling defining women based on biological sex under UK Equality Act. And we're seeing this pattern repeat across sports. Governing bodies making rules that exclude trans athletes, often citing fairness, where critics argue it's discrimination. The conversation isn't going away anytime soon. I wish I knew what snooker was, but yeah, I don't understand like why you would prevent somebody because they're transgender from playing a sport. But next, AMA reaffirms support for gender-affirming care. Now, in a moment of clarity amid a lot of confusion, the American Medical Association has reaffirmed its support for gender-affirming care. Recent reports suggested the organization had changed its stance, but the AMA says that is simply not true. They made it clear. Their position remains unchanged, and they continue to support evidence-based care for transgender patients. This matters because misinformation around healthcare policies can have real consequences, especially for young people and families trying to make informed decisions. Our next story is political accountability heats up. Out Congressman Robert Garcia is making headlines after stating that former Attorney General Pam Bondi will still be required to testify under oath before Congress despite being fired. Garcia made it clear she will not escape accountability. This centers around her handling a high-profile legal matters, and it signals that political oversight isn't stopping anytime soon. I hope they really tear her apart because we all know what she is. Anyway, Birdo makes history on the big screen. So let's get into something a little bit lighter. Birdo, yes, that Birdo from Mario, is heading to the big screen. Long considered one of the gaming's first transgender icons, Birdo will appear in the upcoming Super Mario Galaxy movie. And while the character's origins were, let's say, a bit clumsy in how they described gender identity, over time, Birdo has embraced as a trans character and consistently referred with the pronouns with she and her. For a lot of fans, this is huge because representation matters, especially in spaces like gaming, where LGBTQ visibility hasn't always been strong. Next, Georgia blocks anti-LGBTQ plus bills. So let's get into this amazing good news. In Georgia, more than a dozen anti-LGBTQ plus bills have officially been defeated as the legislative session came to a close. These included bills targeting gender-affirming care, LGBTQ plus students, library content, drag performances. Advocates say this happened because thousands of people spoke out, contacted lawmakers, and showed up. As a reminder, advocacy does work. So congratulations to Georgia for all those amazing defeats. And then finally, Oregon stands firm on LGBTQ plus foster policy. Oregon is pushing back against federal pressure to roll back protections for LGBTQ youth in foster care. The state has maintained a policy requiring foster parents to affirm a child's identity even as federal officials raise concerns and legal challenges continue. Supporters say this is about protecting vulnerable kids, especially since LGBTQ youth are disproportionately represented in the foster system. And at its core, this debate is one thing. What matters more, belief systems or the well-being of children? So I'm so happy that Oregon is pushing back and not caving in to what the federal government is asking them to do. So that's today's stories that really show up a full spectrum of where we are right now. We've got joy, we've got progress, we've got representation, and we've got real challenges that are far from over. But here's one key takeaway. It's this. Visibility matters, advocacy matters, and telling these stories, that matters too. Thanks so much for listening. If you think this will resonate with somebody you know, share it with everybody. Please also leave a comment and come back tomorrow because I have a special report tomorrow on Easter Sunday about Pam Bondi. Thanks for listening.